Good morning. You guys can do better than that. Good morning. Awesome. I'm actually super excited to see so many of you here on Friday. I thought after last night's party that might only have a handful of folks, but it seems like the room is pretty full. So super excited to see you guys and have you guys here. There were actually just three key things I wanted to cover today. I know you've had a lot of sessions, and so you got a lot of information, but there were three things I wanted to really touch on today. So one, you guys gave us a lot of feedback from the Ops Manager 2007 R2 release on improving the setup experience. You told us that setup in general was pretty tough. In particular, SQL reporting services and Ops Manager reporting services setup was really hard. So we've taken your feedback. We've improved that experience, and I wanted to actually take a couple of moments to demo the new setup experience and how we've actually made ourselves a lot better. The other thing I want to touch upon is I actually helped with our internal deployment. So I helped with Microsoft IT as well as Windows Server Labs to upgrade from the CTP versions to beta to RC. And I actually picked up a lot of useful tips along the way with helping them upgrade. So I wanted to share my 7 tips that I learned helping these internal teams upgrade to Ops Manager 2012. I'm sure a lot of you here are experts with Ops Manager as well. So at the end of the session, I would love to have you guys come up and share your experiences with upgrading Ops Manager with the rest of the community here. The final thing I want to touch upon is the new design changes that we made in Ops Manager 2012. Like you probably heard in the overview session, we no longer have the root management server, so that whole single point of failure and scalability bottleneck has been taken away. So I know that was a big piece of feedback that you gave us, and I just wanted to repeat again, us in the product team love to get feedback from you guys, and wanted to show that we've actually taken action upon the feedback you gave us. So let's go ahead and get into a demo. I wanted to show you the new setup experience of Ops Manager 2012 and talk to you about some of the improvements that we made in that space. So this is the new install bootstrapper. I'll click this to launch the setup MSI. What you'll see here is a pretty simple experience where you can choose to install a management server, the operations console, the web console, as well as the reporting server as well. You can click Next. You can choose to the location where you want to install the product. And what we'll do is we'll go and verify that you have the necessary prereqs. So one of the common problems we would see with customers is they would run the prerequisite checker. You would come up with a whole list of prereqs that were missing, and then they had to go and use Bing to try and find out where to download these prerequisites. Now, as part of the setup experience, we actually give you a link where you can go and download. So you can click this link. We'll open the page where you can download this prerequisite, so all within the setup experience. So this is not something that you need to go and do. This is all part of the setup experience. What I've done is I've actually installed this prerequisite on my local box, which I'm going to run. And this setup completed successfully. My next step is to specify a management group. For those of you, how many of you have installed Ops Manager 2007? Can you quick raise your hand? OK, seems like it's all 90% of you. So we have this concept of a management group. It's basically our grouping of all the server roles, databases. It's a virtual kind of grouping of the server roles that are part of Operations Manager. So I'm going to provide a name such as MMS 2012. I'm going to click Next. I'll accept the license agreement. And here is one of the new improvements we made in Ops Manager 2012. If you were an admin who was installing Operations Manager, you would actually need to take the MSI and run the setup on your database machine, right? Or you need to take the SQL scripts that we provided you and run it on the database machine. Now, as part of your single setup experience, we actually have remote database install and data warehouse installed. So you can just point to your database that's on a remote location. You will connect to that database, and we'll install the database or the Ops Manager database for you. So you no longer need to take those bits, get admin permissions on the SQL box, log in, and then install the database. We can do this all remotely for you. So we'll actually go and validate that that we can connect to that database. We'll provide the data. You can provide your database name, set the database size. So I'm going to increase the database size a little bit. And you can also set the data and log file location. So again, remote database and data warehouse install is part of the experience. Again, this is the screen to install the data warehouse. The one key difference in Ops Manager 2012 is the data warehouse is a required component. So in the previous release, you could choose if you didn't want to install the data warehouse on reporting, but now we made this a required part as part of the setup experience. And the reason for this is, as you've seen in many of the demos, they showed a lot of those dashboards, those rich dashboards that were there. A lot of the data that's being pulled from those dashboards is actually coming from the data warehouse. And therefore, the data warehouse is a required component as part of Ops Manager 2012. You can then choose your SQL Server Reporting Services instances. And again, this was one of the big pain points that were there in the previous release. And I've actually simulated a little failure over here to show you how we have actually improved it. SQL Reporting Services or Ops Manager Reporting Services was probably one of our #1 call generators in the previous release. And so the product team has made a big effort to try and improve that experience for customers. And we made our setup a lot more intuitive, where setup actually went and verified to make sure that the necessary services of SRS are running, the necessary files are in place. So we took the onus on making sure that SRS is actually set up correctly for you. So here's a little issue. I can hover over this tooltip, and it tells me that my SQL Server agent hasn't been started. So again, in the previous release, what we had done was we let you continue with setup. Setup would have crashed miserably, and then you'd had to look at the log files to figure out what was going on. Now, as part of the experience, we actually do this for you. You can then specify your web console server. So this is where your web console, this is a site where your web console will be hosted. You can choose what type of authentication mode you need for the web console. You can choose mix mode or network authentication. And then you need to provide your credentials. So again, these are the different credentials that we need to run the different workflows against. And again, so we made this all in line so you can actually drill down and see what credentials you need to provide for each of these accounts. So you no longer need to go and look at a separate documentation. This is all part of your setup experience. So just give me a moment while I type in my credentials. And at this point, we'll actually go and validate that those credentials are accurate and they work. This screen, it allows you to join the Customer Experience Improvement Program. So this is part of Ops Manager improving our experience. We actually collect data on what screens that people use the most, what wizards do they launch, what are the areas that they struggle with. So we highly recommend our customers to try and opt in as much as possible for this. And then finally, Microsoft Updates. So we have actually tied with Microsoft Updates, so we ship our patches through Microsoft Updates. So if you opt in, your system will pick up the patches that we send through Microsoft Update. And in the famous words of Admiral Lagasse, the chef, bam, and you're ready to go. So again, we've made this experience really simple. we had about like 40 screens that you had to go through in the previous release to install the product. We brought this down to basically 10 screens now, and you're ready to go. So out of the box, very simple deployment experience, and I just wanted to take a moment and show that to you guys in the audience. So before I go into upgrade, I wanted to take a moment and recap some of our big investments in this release. There were 4 really big investments in this release. So one was network monitoring. So yeah, we did network monitoring in the R2 release, but we basically did very simple SNMP pings to check if the device was up and running. In this release, with our partnership with EMC, we've taken it a step further where we actually go and figure out the properties of every device. So we can figure out what the properties of every device is. We can actually show you the health of the device and give you a lot more in-depth knowledge on the different devices that are there. So a big investment in network monitoring this release. The other area that we invested in was application performance monitoring. Customers such as yourselves have come back to us and said, hey, it's great that you guys are doing the server monitoring as well as the Microsoft workloads, but we have all these custom applications in our environment, and we really want to monitor them. So we made a big investment this release with our .NET application monitoring, as well as our Java monitoring as well. So not only is it just the .NET apps, we've extended it to heterogeneous monitoring, supporting both .NET and Java as well. So that's the other big investment that we did. And finally, one of my TAP customers early on, about 2 years ago, came to me and said, hey, Ops Manager does a great job of collecting all this performance data as well as all these other metrics, but it's really hard to visualize this data, and it's really hard to actually go and show the value of Ops Manager to my C-level executives. And that's why we made a big investment this release in our dashboards. So we provided this IT Pro dashboard experience, which you saw in some of the earlier sessions, where you can compose your own dashboards and host them in SharePoint or in your web console. Another big investment over there. And finally, our kind of topic of discussion today is what I call topology simplification. One of the big things we wanted to ensure was Ops Manager was a highly scalable product, right? That was one of the challenges that were there in the R2 release. So one of the things we did, got rid of the RMS role that was there, and we federated basically all the management servers so they're all peers of each other. And so I'll take a little bit of time and talk about what are some of the key design changes that we made in this release as well. And finally, we know it's very important. You guys have invested your time and money in building either custom management packs or even using some of the features that were there in R2, such as ACS or AEM. And we are committed to carrying these features forward in 2012 as well. So if you have your custom MPs, if you enable ACS or AEM, this will work in 2012 as well. So that's the product team's guarantee going forward with upgrading to the new release as well. So like I said, I helped MSIT and our Windows Server Labs team deploy Ops Manager 2012 in their beta as well as their RC environments. And I essentially came up with 7 tips that I wanted to share with you guys over the course of the last couple of months, helping them upgrade. And I also know a lot of you guys have some experiences deploying the product. So again, at the end of the session, I would love for you guys to come to the mic and provide your tips and your learnings to the rest of the Ops Manager community here today. So I'll let you take a moment and read this. So you guys know the Dos Equis guy, but one of the key feedbacks we got from customers was the R2 design guide was about an 80-page document. The table of contents was a 5-page document. And nobody, not one customer I've spoken to, has actually read that thing end to end. So, and one of the things that we did is we took that feedback. We actually published an Ops Manager design guide last week, which you can download from the Download Center. And basically, this is a concise 10-page document covering some of the key design changes that are there and some of the key improvements and things that you need to consider while deploying Ops Manager. So whether you're doing a clean install or doing an upgrade, I highly recommend by starting to look at the design guide, which is a pretty short 10-page document. The link actually can be got from the PowerPoint deck as well. So the design guide is the link to download the design guide. There were some 7 key points that were covered in the design guide, which I wanted to touch on a high level. So first is the Ops Manager server roles can be virtualized with Hyper-V. This is our official support of the Ops Manager Hyper-V roles. The one thing I want to call out is, though we do not officially support VMware for obvious reasons, I do know a couple of customers that have actually deployed it and had some good success with it. So Microsoft does not support it, but I know some of you have kind of hands tied with the options that you have. So the other one is we always recommend having one additional server role as a failover role. So I know though you might be monitoring just maybe 10 or 100 servers, we highly recommend having another management server in your management group for high availability. So in case one management server goes down, the agents can fail over to the other management server. So we provide this high availability functionality out of the box, but you need to have 2 management servers in your management group to take use of it. The third guidance that I had was we recommend a storage controller for the server roles with battery-backed write cache enabled. The reason for this is the Ops Manager roles do a lot of small write jobs to the disk, and this actually takes up a lot of resources. So by enabling battery-backed write cache, which actually queues up these writes and does it at one time, we've seen some better performance in your environment. So if you can, we definitely recommend having a battery-backed write cache enabled in your environment for your server roles, that is. For large-scale environments, this is monitoring over 1,000 agents. We require a SQL temp DB of 8 gig and 2 gig for log as well. So again, this is for 1,000 agents or more. We require temp DB to be 8 gig and your log to be 2 gig. As a product team, we've decided to move completely for 64-bit. So 64-bit is required for all server roles. This is not agents, all server roles. So as part of this, my presentation later on, I'll actually talk to you about how to move or update your R2 environment to a 64-bit environment without losing monitoring. So I'll talk a little bit about that. But again, 64-bit is a hard requirement for all server roles in this release. My number 6 is basically for management servers, we recommend having no more than 5 millisecond latency between the management servers. Again, this is a design change that we made where essentially, since we got rid of the root management server, we have federated the workload across all the management servers in your management group. So in order for the management servers to know if they need to pick up any so if a management server goes down, for example, and if another management server needs to pick up the workflows, it's important that they can communicate with each other, and therefore that 5 millisecond latency comes into play. So again, do keep that in mind. So Peter's question is there a perf counter that's there to monitor latency? I believe there is in Windows, but I don't know what it is on top of my head. So I can get back to you on that one. And I'll be happy to take questions at the end of the session. I know a lot of you will have questions. Do you mind holding to your question? Yep. So the gentleman's question is, one of the disaster recovery guidance was to have a management server in a separate remote environment. Again, the guidance that we're giving is, since we no longer have the root management server, so if your root management server went down, regardless, you'll have kind of your workflows will stop running and so on and so forth. Now our recommendation is to try to keep them together. You can do backups of your database. Your database now becomes the important role because it's capturing all the data. So it's important to back up your database, and I'll talk a little bit about that as well. That brings me, it's a good point because that brings me to my 7th tip for the design principles, which is if you have a low bandwidth network, we definitely recommend using a gateway server. So for example, Microsoft IT has some servers that they're monitoring in India that are in a low bandwidth network. And in order to monitor those servers, they actually installed a gateway server over there. So the agents in India report to that one gateway server, and that gateway server then pumps the data to our Tukwila data center, which is where we do the monitoring. So the reason why the gateway server is a good role because it does a little bit of batching of data. So all the agents send the data, it batches that data, and then sends it across the wire. So instead of having all the agents send data across your network and use up the network bandwidth, this is basically data just sent to the gateway server, and then that data is sent to that. So these are my kind of 7 design points that, if there's anything you guys take away in today's session, I definitely recommend just keeping these 7 things in mind. My second tip while helping these guys out was to leverage the sizing helper tool. So this is something we actually released in R2, very popular with y'all, the customers. And so again, this is something we released last week. This is a simple Excel tool that will help you determine number of agents you want to monitor, type of workload you want to monitor, and then provide you what hardware guidance that you need. So I'm actually going to take a moment and demo this tool to y'all. So again, this tool can be downloaded. It's a simple Excel tool. It can be downloaded from the download center. It's also on the Mom Team blog site, so which I posted on. So if you want, you can get it from there. Essentially, this tool walks you through the steps and helps you identify what hardware you need. So first, you can click here. It tells you what are the supported configurations. So we say, hey, 3,000 agents reporting to a management server, up to 2,000 agents reporting to a gateway server. It tells you what Unix and Linux monitoring requirements are. It tells you what our console requirements are as well. It also covers the best practices. So these are some of the best practices I talked about a little earlier. It covers that in this Excel sheet as well. And this is where we kind of get to the meat of it. So this gives you a very simple way to go and choose. So you can go and choose how many Windows computers you want to monitor. So you can do either 500, 1,000, or 3,000. I'm going to choose 1,000 for this environment. If you're interested in network monitoring, again, you can choose how many devices you want to monitor in your environment. So you can say 100, 500. I'm going to choose 500. And then application performance monitoring. So again, this is the new feature, which is our .NET monitoring. We have some additional work that goes on in the background. So depending on whether you want application performance monitoring or not, there's some changes in the hardware guidance as well. So I'm going to choose Enable for this example, and I'm going to click Submit. So at this point, what we'll do is we'll return you the scenario, which is 1,000 Windows computers, 700 application performance monitoring enabled, and 100 network devices. And so what we'll provide you will say, hey, we need 2 management servers with this hardware specs. You need another management server for the network devices you want to monitor. This is the recommendation for the database, the data warehouse. And then you can actually consolidate the web console server and SRS server into one role. Sure. So Unix servers is considered as part of the Windows workload, so you can just account for that as part of this. Sorry, I should have repeated the question. The gentleman's question was, what about the Unix and Linux workloads? They are actually accounted as part of the computers that you want to monitor. And you can also get your database and data warehouse sizing. So this is the default settings that you get out of the box. So for example, if you wanted to have a company policy to to have the data retained for maybe 2 weeks, you can actually update this tool, and we'll provide you a new database size as well. And if you want to say you want to groom your data on a more frequent basis, you can actually reduce this, and it'll tell you what the data warehouse sizing as well. So again, this is a very useful tool. If you're planning a new deployment, I highly recommend downloading it and playing with it. So out-of-the-box functionality, you don't need to pay any consultants to come and tell you what you need to do. This is something that you get as part of the product team as well. So my third tip is to back up your data. This sounds pretty trivial, and it's something that we take for granted. But it's really, really important, especially if you're doing an upgrade, to back up your data. There's three key pieces of data that I highly recommend backing up. So one is the Ops Manager database and data warehouse. This is for obvious reasons. Then it's important that you back up your overrides and unsealed MPs. So these are all your customizations that you've done. So a lot of you have spent time, or you've got consultants to come and tune your different management packs. And these overrides and these customizations are actually stored in an unsealed MP. So before you do an upgrade, make sure you back up these MPs and keep them in your environment. The third key thing that you need to back up is your RMS encryption keys. So in Ops Manager 2007 R2, we actually had an encryption key that went and encrypted the data in your database and data warehouse. So this is to ensure that nobody could actually attack your database and retrieve your username or credentials that you stored in the database or any of your private data that's there. So we actually encrypted all the data with this encryption key, and therefore, if you do for some reason fail during your upgrade and you need to back up your environment and your environment is completely hosted, you'll actually need to run this RMS encryption keys to decrypt the data and be able to restore the environment. So I'm actually going to show you a quick demo on how to back up your Ops Manager database and show you a little PowerShell tool that I actually wrote that you can schedule to back up your overrides as well as your unsealed MPs. So the way to do it in the UI is, in order to back up your unsealed MPs, what you would do is each of your unsealed MPs you'll actually have to go right-click and export these management packs. If you think about this, if you have about 20 or 30 unsealed MPs and they get modified every day, I don't think you want to use the UI for this. So I actually wrote a little PowerShell script. This is an update to the PowerShell script that one of my friends, Boris, had written a while ago. And what this PowerShell script does is it goes and backs up your, using PowerShell, goes and backs up your unsealed management packs and your overrides for you. So again, you don't need to go and manually do this every day. You can actually automate it using Windows Task Scheduler, and you can pass this PowerShell script. So I actually included the PowerShell script in the PowerPoint as well, so you can download that as well. But highly recommend doing this. And to kind of show you it worked, I'll actually bring up the location where I put the PowerShell script. So what it does is it'll create a folder. So today is 4/20th, create a folder, and it backed up all the unsealed NPs in my environment. So our guidance to you all is, if you can, create a Windows task schedule, use this PowerShell script on a weekly basis. If you're updating your overrides and your customizations, back up and make a copy in your environment. So that's kind of the design best practice principle. My second demo that I wanted to show you was backing up the Ops Manager database. Again, this is a pretty standard operation. You can use SQL to do this. All you need to do is right-click, go to Tasks, and click Backup. And SQL provides this functionality out of the box. You can just provide the location or destination. So if you want, you can provide a remote destination, and you can click OK, and SQL will actually take care of backing up this data. So for the overrides and custom management packs, we recommend backing it up on a weekly basis. For your database, again, this is something that we recommend backing up on a weekly basis. Microsoft IT and WS Labs do this every 2 days. Actually, they go and back up this data. But again, it's up to your company policies on how often you want to do this. But again, this functionality is kind of provided out of the box. So you can download this tool. So the link is there in the PowerPoint deck to download the tool. That's the simple command that you need to run, which will actually back up the MPs for you. So my tip number 4 is to review and install the prerequisites. I actually put this picture of a baby here. I recently had a kid. He's 6 months now. And I wish someone actually gave me the prerequisites for him, or actually gave me a little manual. But I just wanted to make sure that you all had time to review some of the new prerequisites that were there. To talk to you a little bit about a scenario that happened. So it was a while back. I went to help one of the internal teams upgrade to 2012, and they actually put together this pretty extensive project schedule where they talked about all the, on day one, we're going to upgrade the management server. Day two, we're going to upgrade the agents. Day three, we're going to update the databases, so on and so forth. When we showed up that day and we ran setup complaints saying, hey, I don't have .NET Framework 4.0, and that's something required for 2012. And then we spent a whole day essentially trying to get the Windows Server admin to update those server machines to install .NET Framework. So just kind of wanted to share this experience. Make sure when you're building your schedules to upgrade the product, ensure you account for time to install and the prerequisites required as well. So some of the new prerequisites I wanted to quickly cover were we required .NET Framework 3.5 or 4.0 for the server roles. If you're going to upgrade from 2007 R2, you need to have cumulative update 4 or above to upgrade to 2012. So that's something you should keep in mind before starting your upgrade. Additionally, we now require, like I mentioned before, 64-bit for all the server roles, and we require Windows Server 2008 R2 for your server roles as well. For the database, we require SQL 2008 SP1 and above. That is our minimum starting bar for the Operations Manager database as well as the data warehouse. So I want to just spend some moment and cover some of these prerequisites that have changed since the previous release, so all of you are kind of aware of it. My tip number 5 is to follow the upgrade steps. How many of you have deployed or installed Ops Manager or upgraded from Ops Manager 2007 SP1 to 2007 R2? OK. So one key thing to remember is the upgrade steps have changed in 2012. So the order of how you upgrade has actually changed. And we've done things a little bit differently to minimize the downtime that you might have. So please do, and I'll cover what those upgrade steps are, but do keep in mind it's not the same as 2007 SP1 to R2. The upgrade steps have changed. From the upgrade path perspective, if you are on 2007 SP1, you first need to upgrade to R2. In particular, you need to have CU4 or CU5 installed in your environment to upgrade to 2012. For those of you who are part of our technical adoption program, our TAP program, we provided you the beta bits, and we will and are committed to upgrading you from beta to RC, and then RC to RTM as well. So you can upgrade from R2 CU4 to Ops Manager 2012 directly, or you can upgrade, go follow the upgrade path that we provided for the TAP customers. So I wanted to provide the first example. So here's a pretty typical R2 environment. You have your databases, you have your management servers, you have the root management server, a gateway server, and a couple of agents there. So the one key thing I wanted to call out was if you had a 32-bit management server in your environment, what you needed to do to bring it up to the level of what you need to upgrade to 2012. So here I have a 32-bit management server. What you'll need to do is stand up another 64-bit management server in your environment. You can then fail over those agents to the 64-bit management server, and then you bring that management server into your management group, essentially. So again, we no longer support 32-bit server roles in 2012. And so before you start your upgrade, this is something that you want to keep in mind as well. So here's the first kind of steps of upgrading your R2 environment to 2012. Again, I want to emphasize the order has changed, so please pay attention to kind of some of the steps that as we go along. So the first role you want to upgrade is the management server. I know a lot of you who have upgraded from SCP1 to R2, you'd start off by upgrading the root management server. This is not the way to do it in 2012. Again, I want to emphasize this. This is not the way to do it in 2012. You do not upgrade the root management server first. You start off by upgrading your one of the management servers in your environment. If you push install these agents, they'll show up in the R2 console as requiring pending approval. So using the R2 console, you can actually approve these agents to get upgraded to 2012. One key thing I will call out is a 2012 agent can report to an R2 management server as well as a 2012 management server. But an R2 agent cannot report to a 2012 management server. So something to keep in mind while you're upgrading. Once these agents are upgraded, you would then proceed to upgrade the rest of the management servers, including the gateway servers in your environment. And then finally, you would upgrade the root management server. So when you upgrade the root management server, you'll then automatically upgrade the Ops Manager database as well as the data warehouse. Again, while the root management server is getting upgraded, there will be a little bit of downtime. We try to minimize the downtime. What I've traditionally seen in Microsoft IT as well as WS Labs when helping them upgrade, it takes about 20 to 30 minutes, depending on kind of the number of agents you're monitoring to upgrade the root management server. So do keep that in mind. Once you've kind of done upgrading these key infrastructure roles, you would then proceed to install your 2012 console. So your 2012 console can be installed in your environment. And then you can proceed to upgrade your other roles as well. So this is SQL reporting services, ACS. If you have those features installed, you would follow the upgrade path to upgrading them. So the process is upgrade your secondary management servers first, then agents, then you do your gateway server roles, then you upgrade. You kind of leave the root management server as the last server role that you upgrade. You should upgrade the database and data warehouse. So how many of you have root management server, a clustered root management server? Can I get a quick raise of hands? It's about 10% of y'all. So to bring everyone up to speed, one of the high availability solutions that we had in R2 release for the root management server was to support clustering of the root management server. So the way you would do the upgrade of the root management server is you would actually, when you get to the last management server in the management group that you want to upgrade, there's a flag that you'll set which will actually go and upgrade the database as well as the data warehouse for you. So again, the last management server in your clustered environment, you'll set a flag which will go and upgrade the database and data warehouse. At that point, the root management server will stop connecting to the database. So that's when you can decommission the clustered root management server from your environment. So that's kind of how you do it. Leave it to the last root management server. You set that flag. It'll update the database and data warehouse. And then you can kind of decommission the clustered root management server. And then again, with the console, you'll essentially go and uninstall the console and install the 2012 console in your environment. I know I emphasized the sequence of upgrade. And this was feedback that some of you TAP customers had given us that, hey, you have changed the sequence. It would be helpful if you guys gave us something to follow. So we actually wrote an upgrade helper MP. So this MP is available in the CD image under the management pack folders. You can import this MP, and it'll basically walk you through step-by-step kind of what are the roles that you need to upgrade and what's the status of the upgrade as well. So if one of the roles is not upgraded, it'll show up as a yellow. It'll mark it as warning. And once it's upgraded, it'll flip it to green. So we've given this to you, import it into your R2 console, and kind of walks you step-by-step through upgrading as well. So my last and final tip is use the upgrade wizard. There are 3 reasons why we highly recommend to use the upgrade wizard. One is, like you saw, like I showed you earlier, the prerequisite checker for setup and upgrade is really pretty good. So we actually go and verify that you have all the necessary prereqs that are there. If they're not there, we'll actually tell you where you can download them and install them. So if you use command line or some other tools, you would not get that functionality. The second reason is we actually go and validate that all the services we require have been enabled. So we'll actually go and check, like I showed you earlier, the SQL Server agent is running or not, and we'll let you know about that as well. And the third and final reason is if setup for some reason fails, we actually enable logging as well. So as part of upgrade or clean setup, the setup wizard will enable logging for you automatically. So if it does fail for some reason, CSS can just grab the logs from you and kind of troubleshoot and help you out without having to try and set up another repro and so on and so forth. So I wanted to show you the new R2 to 2012 upgrade experience and walk you through a quick demo of that. So again, this is my server that I have here, which is a R2 environment. I have my R2 console open. I wanted to take a moment and show you this upgrade helper MP. So this is an MP that you'll find in the monitoring view under Operations Manager Upgrade MP. And what you'll see here is, for example, step 1 will say upgrade the secondary management servers. I don't have any in my environment here. This is an all-in-one box install. And then it walks you through upgrading the gateway servers. Then you'll upgrade your Windows agent. One great thing about this is it actually tells you which agents are manually installed and which are push installed as well. So I know this was a challenge in the previous releases. You never knew which was push install or which was manually installed. This is a very useful view to get that information. So for those of you who actually used SMS to deploy your agents, in 2012, one of the things you'll need to do for manually installed agents is that you need to upgrade those agents first before upgrading the secondary management servers. So again, this is going back to my point is a 2012 agent can talk to an R2 management server as well as a 2012 management server, but a R2 agent cannot talk to a 2012 management server. So if you're done, used SMS to deploy your agents, go and upgrade those agents to 2012 first before upgrading the management servers. So just a key point I wanted to kind of emphasize. Step number 3 is upgrade your Unix and Linux machines as well. And then finally, upgrade your root management server. So again, here we give you a little warning because the root management server is not been updated. And you can open and kind of get some details on, hey, that this management server is not upgraded and kind of what you need to do to upgrade as well. So very useful MP. Before upgrade, I highly recommend kind of importing it into your environment. So again, I'm going to walk you through the experience of upgrading an R2 environment to 2012. Again, launch the setup Bootstrap wizard. One of the first things it will recommend is to back up the Operations Manager database and data warehouse. As we had seen earlier, we did that as well. Again, it's important to back up your unsealed management packs as well. Accept the license agreement. You specify the location where you want to install. All the prerequisite passed in this case. And here's a screen that I just wanted to show you. So again, I mentioned to the fact that the data warehouse is a required component in Ops Manager 2012. And so as part of your upgrade experience, if you don't have a data warehouse, we'll actually prompt you for a location where you can install the data warehouse. So I just wanted to show that so that none of you were caught unaware. And then I'm going to provide the accounts required for the data warehouse. So these are the data reader and data writer accounts. And that's it. So again, in 4 screens, I've kind of gone through upgrading a whole Ops Manager R2 environment to 2012. So very simple, both clean setup experience as well as upgrade experience. You had a question, sir? So the gentleman's question was, it's in the wizard I'd shown creating a new data warehouse. So one of the things we require as part of the setup is to create a new data warehouse. So we'll actually create a new data warehouse, but we can automatically figure out where your database is, and we'll upgrade that database for you. So that's not something you need to provide us. We can find it out through the SDK that's there. So now that we've kind of kicked off upgrade, I wanted to take a couple of moments and talk to you about the root management server and some of the design changes that we have made. So here, to just bring you all up to speed, the Ops Manager 2007 R2 had a role called the root management server. This role did the group calculation, checked for availability across the servers. Even alert notifications were all sent to the root management server. So one of the challenges and feedback we heard from customers was, hey, this was essentially a single point of failure, right? Because if the root management server went down, all the consoles connected to the root management server, and you essentially lost visibility into your monitoring of your environment. So this was a big bottleneck that was there in the previous release. The other challenge with the root management server was it was also a really bad performance bottleneck. And what I mean by this is if you actually had to install and you wanted to monitor 100 agents, for example, we would provide you hardware recommendations for the root management server. But then your company grew and you decided to monitor 5,000 agents. You actually had to go and buy new hardware for the root management server, and there was no easy scale-out option for you. So again, this was really a performance bottleneck. This was something that we heard feedback from y'all, and we've really taken it seriously and made some changes in this release of the product. For the root management servers, because it was a single point of failure, we actually provided some high availability options to y'all. One was to cluster the root management server. Those of you who have any experience with clustering, it's not the easiest task to do, especially patching and upgrading a cluster requires a really special skill set and patience as well. So the other option that we provided, and again, after a couple of months, we heard feedback from customers such as y'all, we provided what we call the promotion tool. So this is a tool that we released that you could go and manually promote another management server to take the role of the root management server. The challenge with this tool was it required you to manually run this tool. So anytime the root management server went down, someone actually had to physically take the tool, run it on the management server. And this is not something that you could automate. So this was a big challenge for our enterprise customers such as yourselves, where really this would have been an OK option if there was a way to manually, automate the promotion of the root management server. So took your feedback. We made some significant changes in 2012. I'm going to talk to you about some of these changes that we did. So first off, the root management server and other management servers had a parent-child relationship in the previous release. And what we've done is now we've actually federated the management servers across the board. So management servers are all peers of each other. There's no parent-child relationship, and you kind of get rid of that bottleneck and the single point of failure through this federated experience. And the way we actually accomplished this was introducing a new concept called the resource pool. So this is, again, an important concept that I hope you guys kind of take away today. And essentially, a resource pool is a collection of management servers. And what we have done is some of these top-level workflows, such as group calculation, availability, monitor health roll-up, database grooming, and notifications, was all carried out by the root management server in the previous release, right? So if the root management server went down, all these workflows stopped running. Now with the concept of a resource pool and having your management servers as part of this resource pool, we've actually created a way where we can actually distribute these workloads, these workflows across all the management servers that are available. So these workflows do not need to run on one particular management server. We automatically funnel them out to the different available management servers in your environment. So again, giving you that distributed kind of workload spread across the available resources that you have, not all of it running on a single management server. The other big change that we made is we actually federated out the configuration and SDK service. So again, those of you familiar with the internals of Ops Manager, the root management server essentially had 3 services running. It had the configuration service, the SDK service, and the health service. Now what we've done is we actually federated out the configuration service as well as SDK service to all management servers. So you'll see those 3 services running on all management servers in your management group. Another big change that we made, in particular for the config service, is the configuration service was responsible for going and checking if there were configuration changes in the database and then notifying the agents if there's new config that it had to pick up. It also stored a copy of these config changes in its memory. And what you would have noticed, again, this is a little bit going into the internals of the product, is the config store on the root management server kept growing as time went on. And this really caused some performance issues, and the startup time was also really slowed down because we created this config store in memory. And one of the design changes that we made in 2012 is we pushed all the config data into the Ops Manager database store. So nothing is stored in memory, and what this has done is really improved our startup time, and also the resources required, the hardware required for the management servers has also come down because we no longer require big memory to store the config in memory. The other changes that we made is with the SDK service is now, like I said before, is we federated the SDK service out across all the available management servers. And what's great about this is the consoles used to connect to the SDK service. Now that we federated the SDK service, your console can connect to any management server that's available. So again, if one management server went down, you can connect to any available management server in your management group, and then you'd get your console up and working, and you can see your health in your environment. I actually helped one of my internal customers, WS Labs, with this. One of the things they did was they actually configured NLB, and what they did was they had the console connect to the NLB, and so if the management server went down, they didn't have to go and actually figure out which management server they connect to. It automatically took care of it for itself. So again, NLB is something that you can configure for the console in 2012, and it's supported as part of the product team. So the way this works and the way the resource pool works, the first management server you install gets added to what we call the all management servers resource pool. And then all these top-level workflows actually run on that management server. Once you add a secondary management server into your management group, it gets added to the all management servers resource pool as well. And Ops Manager by itself automatically starts balancing out the workload. So before, all these top-level workflows were running on that first management server. Once I added a second one, the dependency monitor availability workflow was distributed out to the secondary management server. So that's kind of how we have enabled scaling out, is now these workflows can be automatically distributed to any available management server in the management group. If I added a third management server, again, we'll further go and distribute the workflows to the other management server in the management group. And how this has helped is if a particular management server goes down, that workflow automatically gets picked up by the other management server in the management group. And again, this will give you a little bit of idea why I had mentioned that less than 5 milliseconds latency is good. These are some of the reasons why, because these management servers are actually will take over workflows for any management server that does go down. Yes, sir. So the gentleman's question is, how does these services know that there's a resource pool? I actually demo in a little bit how you create a resource pool and how you use it. Actually, that's a really good question. So the gentleman's question is, how do the agents know what management server or what resource pool they need to use? Agents are actually, and resource pools have a complete separate logic. So for example, agents still have a primary and secondary management server that they look up to and they fail over to. They have nothing to do with resource pools. A very good question, though. But resource pools are used for network devices and Unix and Linux machines. And the reason why they are different from agents is machines have an agent running on them, so they have their own logic for failover. But for network devices and cross-plat machines, we actually either use SNMP or SIM to kind of connect to those machines. So the workload is actually done by the management server in those cases. So this is where cross-plat Unix and Linux machines as well as network devices can leverage the resource pool for high availability. So in your R2 release, if your management server did go down, you actually lost monitoring for your network devices as well as your Unix and Linux machines. And again, with the resource pools, we actually enabled high availability for cross-plat Unix and Linux machines as well as network devices. And again, so these devices are part of a resource pool. So if a management server goes down, the other management server will start connecting to that device or that Unix machine and start monitoring that. So again, 2007 R2, no high availability for Unix and Linux devices as well as network devices. This is something you get out of the box in 2012 as well. So I actually wanted to dive in and show you a demo of how to configure resource pools and actually show it in action. So for my demo today, what I have is a pretty simple environment. I have two management servers. I have one management server called opsmanager.contoso.com, and I have another one called sharepoint.contoso.com. I have three cross-plat Unix machines that are connecting to them. One is SLES1 and SLES2 connect to Ops Manager, and SLES300 connects to the SharePoint machine. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to simulate a failure. So I'm going to actually take down the SharePoint.contoso machine down, and what you'll notice is that monitoring actually gets picked up by the Ops Manager management server. And to just prove it to you, I actually wrote a little PowerShell script that's gone and polling our SDK to see which Unix machines are connecting to which server. So what you'll notice here is my SLES300 machine is connecting to the SharePoint.contoso machine, and my SLES1 and SLES2 machines are connecting to the Ops Manager Contoso pool. So what I'm going to do right now is simulate a disaster, and I'm going to just turn off this SharePoint server machine. So what you'll notice in a couple of minutes is this monitoring of that SLES300 machine will actually get picked up by the Ops Manager server. So while that's running, I wanted to spend a little bit of time and talk to you about how to create a resource pool. So out of the box, we have something called the All Management Servers resource pool. So every management server that you install gets added to this All Management resource pool. But you can also create your own additional resource pool. So for example, if I wanted to manage which devices were being monitored by my Unix and Linux machines, I can create a resource pool to manage those Unix and Linux machines. And the way I do that is to go and right-click, Create Resource Pool. Call this the Unix Machines Resource Pool. I then go add the management servers that I want to be a part of this resource pool. So we'll go and identify all the management servers in your environment. I can then go ahead and add these management servers to the resource pool, and I can go ahead and create that resource pool. Yes, sir? Can one management server be part of more than one resource pool? Yes, it can. But again, depending on what workloads you have, so we recommend having one management server for your network devices. You might want to kind of put those management servers that are for network devices together. Yep. Exactly. And that goes back to my key point that I mentioned before. We highly recommend having more than one management server in your management group. So that resource pool got created. So my first step is to create the resource pool. And my second step is to actually use that resource pool as part of my discovery experience. So if I was going to go and discover a Unix machine or a cross-plat or a network device. So this is a pretty familiar dialog for most of you using to discovery experience. What you'll notice is this is where you'll specify your criteria for discovering your cross-plat devices. You'll notice there's a little drop-down for resource pool. So you'll say that, hey, these Unix devices that I discovered as part of this discovery criteria need to be assigned to this particular resource pool. And so this is that little resource pool that we created, the Unix resource pool. I'll select that one, and that will take care of assigning those Unix machines to that particular resource pool. Again, something to keep in mind when you're doing your new discoveries. So what I'm going to do is now, hopefully, the second management server has picked up the monitoring of the SLES300 machine. And so my PowerShell script is going and polling the SDK to see what machines. So as you can see, I turned off the SharePoint machine, so there are no Unix machines being monitored by that one. And in a couple of seconds, what you'll see is the monitoring has been picked up by the Ops Manager management server, the Ops Manager management server. So that's, as you can see, it took us probably less than a minute for the monitoring to get picked up. So again, high availability for both network devices and cross-plat machines out of the box. Very, very cool functionality in this release of the product. The other thing I wanted to mention was one of the things you might notice in your UI is we have a concept called the RMS emulator role. So the reason why I wanted to call this out a little bit is there are certain management packs that are targeted at the RMS class that was there in the 2007 R2. And I think there are two management packs that do this. One is the Active Directory management pack, and the other one is the Exchange management pack. To ensure there's backwards compatibility, we actually created something called the RMS emulator role. So if you go in the UI and you see an instance of the RMS emulator role, I don't want you guys to be alarmed by anything. It's just there to ensure there's backward compatibility for those two particular management packs. So if you're using those two management packs, they're going to be leveraging that. Yes? So the gentleman's question is there a new management pack for Active Directory that doesn't rely on the root management server or not targeted at the root management server class? We're actually working with those two partners to try and ship an update to that MP and not target the RMS class that's there, and to target there's actually a class called the All Management Servers Resource Pool class. So we're working with them to update those MPs. I just wanted to show you there's a little PowerShell script over here that you can run to delete the RMS emulator. So if you're not using those MPs, and if you want to kind of delete that column that's there in the UI, you can actually use this PowerShell to do that. So the way I would, so gentleman's question is there a failover for the RMS emulator? Emulator, the first management server you install actually becomes the RMS emulator. You can actually configure which management server needs to become the RMS emulator through that PowerShell script that's there. No, so the way to think about it is we've completely got rid of the root management server. So failover is all handled by the management servers. There's nothing to be worried. This is just for the targeting of those particular MPs to run. So again, I would highly recommend kind of getting the whole concept of having a root management server out of your mind. Yes, so there's only one RMS emulator, and there's no auto failover for that one. Yeah, but again, the MPs are just targeting those classes for it. Yes. Not the out-of-the-box MPs are all been updated to target the all management server resources. So let me take a minute. I just want to quickly wrap up. We've done some big improvements in this release. We made the deployment and upgrade experience a lot simpler. I hope you guys saw that in the demos today. We've taken your feedback on making Ops Manager highly available and scaling out. So again, management servers are a peer of each other, so you no longer need to worry about the root management server and the root management server going out. And high availability you get out of the box. So these are some of the big improvements that we've done this release. Again, I want to thank you guys for providing all the feedback. If you didn't provide us this feedback, we wouldn't actually make these changes in the product. So again, please continue to participate in the community. And I want to thank you all for coming out this Friday. Thanks a lot, guys.